Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to gaining knowledge quickly and thoroughly. Today, we're diving into something that I think causes a lot of stress for people professionally.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Dealing with unhappy customers.
Mm.
Impatient, maybe even really angry clients or customers.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely high on the stress list. Whether you're in an office, a restaurant, retail, doesn't matter.
Exactly. That one interaction can just drain you. Test your patience, your professionalism, especially trying to stay polite in English when someone's upset.
It really can. That tension spikes, and suddenly finding the right words, especially polite, clear English words, feels impossible, even if you know what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Communicating calmly while someone isn't calm is a whole different skill.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to cut through that stress. We've looked at some great source material and pulled out a really effective two-part strategy.
Okay. The strategy sounds good.
Yeah, and along with it, 10 specific professional English phrases. The idea to give you a shortcut to handling these tough situations politely, effectively.
So, not just what to say, but maybe why it works.
Exactly. The sources get into the linguistics, the psychology, why these particular phrases can actually, turn things around. It's all about professional business English for customer service. Confidence, basically.
Confidence is key in those moments. Okay, I'm interested. Let's unpack this strategy. You said it's pretty straightforward.
The sources say it's elegantly simple, but needs discipline. 2 steps. Crucial. They happen in order.
Sequential. Got it. What's step 1?
Step 1. Acknowledge the customer and the problem.
Right. Acknowledgement.
This is the absolute foundation. Before you even think about fixing anything, you have to let the customer know you're listening.
Yeah.
That you understand they have a problem, and maybe that you get how frustrating it is.
Okay, so it's like you're validating their experience first. Because often when people get angry, it's because they feel ignored or dismissed.
Precisely. That's often the root of the anger escalating, isn't it? Feeling like nobody's actually hearing you.
Mm-hmm. So you need to build that little bridge first.
Yeah.
Just saying, yes, I hear you, I understand, I'm listening, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It establishes rapport. It shows you're tuned in to their distress. Skip this, and you just sound cold, bureaucratic.
Which would just make things worse. Okay, so validate the emotion first. Then what? Step 2?
Then you pivot. Step 2 is offer a solution. Tell them you will fix it.
Ah, okay. The action part.
Right. Once you've shown you understand, you immediately signal that you're taking action. And this is important, that you are taking personal responsibility.
So it's not just a solution exists. It's I am going to find it for you.
Yes. I own this now. You told me the problem. I'm handling it. The transition needs to feel smooth, almost instant.
Acknowledge, then act. Got it.
And you really need both. If you just acknowledge, they feel heard, but still stuck.
Right. Sympathy without action isn't very helpful.
But if you jump straight to fixing it without acknowledging how they feel, you risk sounding dismissive, like their frustration didn't matter.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's that combination, empathy first, then competence shown through action, the 1-2 punch, as you said.
Exactly. So let's get into the specific language. These are the tools. We'll start with part 1, the acknowledgement phrases, 5 essential ones here.
5 phrases just for acknowledging, okay.
First one, super useful, very versatile, thanks for letting me know, or slightly more formal.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that working in a lot of situations.
It's polite, general purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if it's a tiny error or a huge mess up. But the clever part is what it implies.
What's that?
It implies gratitude for the information. You're subtly saying, okay, I've received this and I'm ready to do something about it. It's not defensive.
Ah, right. Instead of jumping to, well, I didn't do that, or that's not my fault, you just accept the information first. Thanks for telling me. That immediately lowers the temperature, doesn't it? Because you're not pushing back.
Exactly. The sources point out that if someone finds fault with your work, the instinct is defense. This phrase replaces that. It frames the customer as, like, helping you spot the issue.
That's a smart linguistic move. You sidestep blame while signaling willingness to fix it. Okay, good one. What's next?
Next, a classic, but one people sometimes worry about. I'm sorry to hear that.
Right. The sorry trap. People think it means admitting fault, admitting liability.
That's the common misconception. But in professional service English, especially with this phrase, it's usually not about saying, it's my fault.
So what is it saying?
It's showing sympathy, emotional investment. It's like saying, I feel bad for you that you're going through this. The tone is key here. It needs to sound genuinely sympathetic.
Okay, so it's about empathy, not apology in the sense of taking blame. I recognize this is bad for you, and I acknowledge that.
Exactly. It builds that emotional connection, which you need before you can effectively solve the problem.
Makes sense. Connect, then correct. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 tackles a big source of frustration.
Yeah.
Waiting. It's thanks for your patience, or thank you for your patience.
For when someone's been on hold forever or waiting days for an email response.
Precisely. You're directly acknowledging the time they've lost, the inconvenience.
And the sources highlighted something interesting here, didn't they? About why this is better than, say, sorry for the wait.
Yes, this is clever. Sorry for the wait focuses on your failure, the company's delay.
Right. Puts the spotlight on the problem.
But thanks for your patience focuses on the customer's positive quality, their endurance. You're actually complimenting them for waiting.
That's good. So you're validating their effort, not just apologizing for your lapse. It reframes the whole thing, turns the negative weight into their positive patience.
Exactly. Builds rapport through subtle positive reinforcement. Much smoother.
Very smart. Okay, number 4 sounds a bit more formal.
It is. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
So this is more organizational, like from the company, not just the individual agent.
Generally, yes. Good for emails, official responses, situations where you're clearly speaking for the department or company. Like the first phrase, it expresses gratitude for the feedback.
And again, avoids denial. It frames their complaint as helpful input.
Right. Remember that story from the source material? Someone reported a software bug.
Oh, yeah. And the company used this exact phrase.
Yes. And the person said they felt almost helpful. It completely shifted their mindset from annoyed victim to, like, a partner in fixing things.
That's powerful. You're elevating them, saying their input is valuable. Makes them feel respected, not just angry. Especially useful for bigger systemic issues, maybe.
Seems like it. Okay, the 5th and final acknowledgement phrase. This one's for the really serious stuff. I completely understand your concern.
Okay, completely understand. That sounds strong. When would you use this?
When the stakes are high. Money problems, bank errors, major service failures, security issues, anything that genuinely causes significant stress or impacts their life.
And concern here is code for
Their problem, their frustration, their anger, their worry, maybe even their fear. It's a polite container for all that negative emotion.
And why is completely so important? Why not just, I understand your concern?
Because completely adds weight. It shows you're not minimizing the issue. It reassures them you grasp the gravity of the situation. It says, this isn't small potatoes to me. I get that this is serious for you.
Right. If someone's paycheck is late, like in one of the examples, just saying, I understand might feel a bit flat. Completely understand. Signals you get the real world impact.
Precisely. And there was another tip related to this. Using just the first part sometimes.
Yeah, just dropping in. I completely understand mid-conversation if the customer is really venting. Like a little check-in. I'm still here. I'm still tracking with you. You haven't lost me. Prevents them feeling ignored even while they're talking. That's a really useful technique for de-escalation during a long complaint. Okay, so those are our 5 tools for acknowledgement. Really useful.
Right. So we've done part 1. Validated the emotion, shown we're listening. Now, the crucial pivot to part 2, offering a solution.
Time for action. This is where we show competence and take charge.
Exactly. These next 5 phrases are about personal commitment, action verbs, and projecting confidence that a fix is coming.
Even if you don't know the exact fix yet.
Especially then, sometimes. First one. Let me check on that for you.
Okay, simple, direct. Let me taking responsibility for you, making it personal.
Yeah, it feels very service-oriented.
Yeah.
Like in a restaurant, as you mentioned. My salad's late. Thanks for letting me know. Let me check on that for you. Boom. Action.
Right. Immediate. Good for those quicker transactional things. What if it's more complicated?
Then we use phrase number 2. Let me see how I can fix that for you.
Okay. This one sounds like it buys a bit more time for investigation. This isn't straightforward. I need to look into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But critically, without making the customer feel brushed off. And the key word here is
how. Let me see how I can fix it. Not if.
Yes. Tell us why that's so important.
Because if introduces doubt. Doubt you can fix it, doubt it's worth fixing, doubt about wasting their time. How implies the fix is definite. It's going to happen. You just need to figure out the method.
That confidence is contagious, right? It reassures the customer even while you're investigating.
Absolutely. It lowers their anxiety because the outcome feels certain. Huge difference from one small word.
Okay, next.
Next, we have phrases that signal more immediate or final action. Number 3 is very reassuring. I'll handle it right away.
Ooh, handle it. That sounds comprehensive, and right away adds urgency.
Totally. Handle means take control, manage, fix the whole thing. You use I will, strong commitment. When a customer hears this, they feel like
The problem is off their plate now. It's been transferred.
exactly. Ownership has shifted. They can mentally check out of worrying about it. Huge relief.
Definitely a powerful one. Okay, number 4. Similar weight, but maybe a slightly softer, friendlier feel. I'll take care of that for you.
Just take care of it. Yeah, that sounds a bit less like wrestling a big problem and more like smoothly resolving something.
Right. It often implies the fix might be easier or quicker. Like, oh, your website's down. Don't worry, I'll take care of that for you. It suggests confidence and ease. Makes the customer feel like their issue is no big deal for you, the expert.
Reduces their perception of the problem's a difficulty.
Nice. And the last one.
The 5th action phrase. This one comes after you've done your checking or investigating. Here's what I can do for you.
Okay, so this signals you've found the solution. Or maybe options?
Exactly. You've done the work behind the scenes. Now you're presenting the outcome. It's particularly useful if there are options. Like, okay, the item is damaged. Here's what I can do for you. Option A is a full refund. Option B is a replacement sent overnight.
Right. It brings the customer back into the process to make a choice. Maybe accept the proposed solution. Shifts from problem solving back to finalizing the transaction. Precisely. Okay, so those are the 10 core phrases. 5 for acknowledging, 5 for solving. But before we see them combined, there's something crucial we need to cover.
The things you should never say.
The absolute deal breakers. The source material was very clear on this. 2 words in particular.
Let me guess. Wait.
Bingo. And.
Calm down.
You got it. Let's talk about wait first. It seems so innocuous. Just wait a moment. Why is that so bad?
It's about the implied power dynamic and priorities. When someone's already upset, their problem feels like the most urgent thing in the world. Hearing wait feels like
You're being put on the back burner, like something else is more important than you.
Exactly. It signals disrespect for their time and urgency. It forces them into passivity without assurance. It just brews more frustration.
It brings back that feeling of being ignored.
Yeah.
Right? The very thing that might have made them angry in the first place.
So if you do need a moment, say, to look something up, how do you ask for it? Using the good phrases.
You have to frame it within the solution commitment. Lead with the action.
So not wait while I check, but more like,
Okay, let me check on that for you right now. It might take me just a moment to pull up the details. Could you hold on for, say, 60 seconds while I access the system?
I see. Commitment first. Let me check. Then a polite request for time. Could you hold? Not a command. Wait. Big difference.
Huge difference. Okay, and the other toxic phrase, calm down. Why is this one universally guaranteed to backfire?
It's just so dismissive. It invalidates their feelings completely. You're essentially telling them their emotional reaction is wrong or inappropriate.
Like you're judging them.
Exactly. It positions you as the superior, rational one telling the emotional customer how to behave, unless things have really escalated into abuse, which is a different situation.
Right, that needs a different response.
Telling a typically angry customer to calm down just fans the flames, like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Because you're minimizing their experience. You're saying your reaction is bigger than the problem warrants, even if the problem feels huge to them.
Precisely. Your job is to address the problem, not critique their emotion. Focus on the issue. Use the acknowledgement phrases to validate the feeling, then move to the solution. Don't tell them how to feel.
Got it. Avoid wait, avoid calm down. Use the 10 phrases instead. Okay, let's see this whole strategy in action. Time for the dialogues.
Yeah, this is where it comes together. Seeing how you can mix and match the acknowledgement A and solution S phrases depending on the situation.
Dialogue 1. Classic restaurant scenario. Customer's food is super late. They say, "Excuse me, I ordered a salad 30 minutes ago and it still hasn't arrived. I'm starting to run late."
Okay, needs a quick professional fix. What was the response?
Server says, "Thanks for letting me know A about the salad. Sorry about that. I'll take care of that for you. I'll be right back."
Perfect. Acknowledged. Thanks. Apologize briefly, then straight into the solution. I'll take care of it. Fast, efficient. The source mentioned this, shrunk the thanks.
Yeah, meaning it minimized the time spent on back and forth apologies or excuses. Just acknowledged and acted. The customer's frustration doesn't have time to build because the solution is already happening.
Nice. Okay, dialogue 2. Grocery store, self-checkout error. Customer got double charged for apples.
Simple transactional problem, agent says. I'm sorry to hear that. A, let me check on that for you.
Yes. Can I take a look at your receipt?
Textbook. Sympathy, sorry to hear that, for the small hassle, then immediate action. Let me check. Asking for the receipt shows they're already starting the fix. Quick problem, quick solution.
Exactly. Now for something heavier. Dialogue 3, phone support. Damaged package. Customer wants a refund. They're probably already annoyed from navigating the phone tree.
Okay, high tension potential here. Needs careful handling.
Agent uses layers. Oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. And I completely understand, A, that you would want a refund. Here's what I can do for you. Let me get your information and we'll get you a full refund. Ugh, the combo acknowledgement. Sorry to hear that, for sympathy. Plus, I completely understand for the seriousness. That's really good for diffusing.
Takes the fight right out of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then transitions smoothly to the solution. Here's what I can do. And the specific action, getting info for the refund.
And the result in the source material was?
The angry customer said thank you at the end. Success. Proves that validating the strong emotion first makes them open to the solution.
Feeling heard makes all the difference. Okay, dialogue 4. Internal frustration. IT support. Employee can't access files needed for an urgent presentation.
Stressful for the employee, and the IT person needs time to investigate. Tricky balance.
So what did the IT agent say?
I'm sorry to hear that. A, let me see how I can fix that for you, S, and give you access to those files. Go ahead and tell me your ID number and email address, and I'll take care of it for you.
Okay, multiple things happening here. Acknowledgement, sorry. Then the investigative solution phrase, let me see how I can fix it. Then starts the process, asking for ID, and finishes with that reassuring final commitment. I'll take care of it.
Right. It buys the necessary diagnostic time without using weight. The employee hears empathy, the promise of a fix, how, and a final guarantee, take care of it. It shows high commitment while managing expectations.
Very skillful handling of needing time. Okay, last one, dialogue 5. Very sensitive. HR department, late paycheck. Employee is understandably upset.
Yeah, this is high stakes. Needs maximum empathy and urgency. Employee says, my paycheck's a day late. I have bills. This is unacceptable.
Okay, deep breath time for the HR person. What's the response?
Yes, of course. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And thank you for your patience, A, during this delay. I'll take care of that for you and check with payroll immediately.
Another double acknowledgement. Formal, we appreciate, plus acknowledging the wait, thank you for your patience. That really covers the bases for empathy.
And the solution is direct and urgent. I'll take care of that, plus check with payroll immediately.
That word immediately is crucial there, isn't it? Given the financial stress.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It shows the employee their serious issue is being treated as top priority. They feel heard, validated, and see instant action. The goal is making sure they know their livelihood is being respected.
Yeah. Across all these, the pattern is clear. Acknowledge first, then offer a concrete solution with personal responsibility. It's a structure for polite, controlled, effective communication.
So, wrapping up our deep dive here, the core takeaway seems really clear. You have to lead by acknowledging how the customer feels, validate that frustration,
Get on their side emotionally first.
and then immediately follow up by confidently stating you are taking ownership of fixing it.
Yeah, because fundamentally when people are upset, angry, frustrated, whatever, they just want two basic things, right?
Which are?
To feel like someone actually listened to them, truly heard them, and then to get help, to have the problem solved as effectively as possible.
And these 10 phrases used within that two-part strategy give you the professional English toolkit to do exactly that. Clearly, politely, correctly.
Mastering this vocabulary and the underlying strategy really gives you an edge in those difficult moments. It's about managing the interaction professionally.
Definitely. Now, we've focused a lot on the specific English words, the phrases, the structure. But that strategy, empathy, then ownership feels pretty universal.
It probably is, yeah. The core human need to be heard and helped doesn't change much across cultures, I imagine.
So the final thought we wanted to leave everyone with is about, well, the delivery.
Right. We have the perfect words now. But what if they're delivered without any real feeling?
Exactly. What happens if someone just reads these phrases off a script, like a robot? Does I completely understand your concern work if the tone is completely flat, insincere?
Probably not as well. The words might lose their power if the empathy behind them doesn't feel genuine.
So it raises that question. Are these phrases just a professional mask to manage people effectively? Or are they actually tools to build a real, albeit brief, human connection in a tense situation?
Maybe depends on how you use them, whether you're just reciting lines or actually trying to employ the strategy of empathy and helpfulness behind the words.
Yeah. Are you managing a script or are you managing a relationship, even a temporary one? Something to think about next time you face that challenging interaction. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive. We want to show you the actual architecture of rational thinking. Think of it like this. Physics might tell us how gravity works, right? But philosophy pushes further. It asks, what does a concept like force or existence even mean fundamentally? And maybe even more importantly, how can we possibly justify our claim to know anything about gravity in the first place?
Okay, so we're moving past those vague definitions and getting straight into that architecture you mentioned.
That's the plan. We're exploring the 5 central areas, the big, persistent questions that really define what philosophy is all about. These are the necessary starting points for, well, for all structured thought.
All right, let's start where all good intellectual journeys should, right? With the word itself, philosophy. It literally means the love of wisdom.
Straight from the Greek. Philos, meaning love, and Sophia, meaning wisdom.
Now, that sounds simple enough, love of wisdom, but we really need to pause on that distinction you hinted at earlier. The difference between just having knowledge and having wisdom. Because that difference, it drives the whole field.
It absolutely does. Knowledge is, accumulating facts, data points, maybe practical skills.
Like knowing capitals of countries or how to code something specific.
Exactly. That's knowledge. Wisdom, though. Wisdom goes deeper. It's about understanding fundamental truths. It's the ability to judge soundly, to apply knowledge in the right way to get good outcomes, especially when you're dealing with the big picture stuff, the ultimate nature of things.
So wisdom is knowing the why. Why does this work? Why is this moral choice the better one? Why do we even value the knowledge we have?
Precisely. It's about understanding the context, the implications, the underlying principles.
Our sources have this fantastic analogy that really helps nail this down. It compares a skilled technician to an architect.
Ah, yes. That's a good one.
The technician has incredible practical knowledge, right? They know the exact specs of the materials, how to wire everything up, the building codes. They're experts in their specific area.
Absolutely essential knowledge.
But the architect has the wisdom. They understand the whole structure, why it's designed that way, how the building relates to sunlight, how the choices affect the people inside, how it fits into the bigger environment, the city plan.
Right. Philosophy aims to be that architect for your entire worldview.
Yeah.
It examines the foundations, the overall structure, not just, the paint on the walls.
Okay, so if the goal is this love of wisdom, this architectural view, then we have to talk about the method. How does philosophy actually do this? Because that's what really sets it apart, isn't it? It takes this stance, this questioning stance.
It really does. It's unique. Philosophy starts by questioning the basic assumptions that pretty much everyone else, every other field, just takes for granted. It's the discipline that refuses to just accept the default settings of reality or knowledge without a fight.
Can you give an example of that? Like assumptions science makes?
Sure. Think about, say, a chemist. They assume matter exists, right?
Yeah.
And that it behaves consistently according to certain laws. A biologist assumes life is a real, measurable thing, subject to evolution. A mathematician assumes the basic rules of logic, and numbers are solid and universal.
And those assumptions let them get work done.
Exactly. These fields are incredibly productive because they build on those foundations. They don't constantly question whether atoms are real every morning.
But the philosopher does, or at least reserves the right to.
The philosopher steps back and asks those, frankly, sometimes inconvenient questions like, how do we know the physical world isn't just an elaborate dream? What even is existence? Why is there something here at all instead of just nothing?
And that's probably where some people tune out, right? They think, okay, this is getting impractical.
It can seem that way.
I mean, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If philosophy's main job is just questioning basic assumptions, doesn't that risk grinding everything to a halt? Like, if I spend my day genuinely doubting whether this chair exists, I'm not going to get much else done.
That's a fair challenge, and it's one philosophers grapple with too. But the sources are clear. The power isn't in getting stuck in perpetual doubt. It's not about paralysis.
Okay.
It's about demanding rigorous justification. The philosopher questions the chair not to avoid sitting, but to understand the absolute minimum evidence or reasoning needed to justify the belief that the chair is real and will hold you up.
Ah, I see. So it's about understanding the basis of belief.
Precisely. And that rigor becomes incredibly practical when the assumptions are way more complex than chairs. Think about assumptions underlying ethical duties or political freedoms or scientific claims. Justifying those requires that philosophical muscle.
That makes sense. And this questioning approach also helps clarify how philosophy differs from other big ways humans try to understand the world, like science and religion.
Exactly. We touched on science. It asks how things work within a reality it largely assumes, using observation and testing.
Right. And philosophy asks what reality fundamentally is, what existence means, and how we can even claim to know things. It's like the step before science can even begin.
Well put. And then you have the contrast with religion or mythology. They also tackle the ultimate questions: existence, value, purpose, big questions.
But the method is different.
Fundamentally different. Mythology and religion often rely on faith, divine revelation, or sacred texts as the source of truth. These truths are often presented as absolute, something to be accepted.
Whereas
Philosophy insists on using only reason, logical evidence, and arguments that are, in principle, accessible to anyone. It's built on rational inquiry and coherence above all else. Faith isn't part of the philosophical toolkit, argument is, which is why philosophical debates can and do last for centuries.
And that commitment to reason, that's the historical spark, right? Going back to ancient Greece.
That's generally seen as the starting point, yes. Specifically, the 6th century BCE, with thinkers often called the pre-Socratics. Before them, explanations for why things happened were overwhelmingly mythological.
Like gods causing storms or harvests?
Exactly. If the crops failed, maybe Demeter was angry. If there was a storm, Zeus was likely involved. The world was seen as operating based on the whims of deities. That's the age of mythos explanation through stories, divine narratives.
But then came a shift.
A massive shift.
Yeah.
Figures like Thales of Miletus started looking for Logos' rational, natural explanations instead of mythical ones. Thales famously suggested that maybe water was the fundamental stuff everything else was made of.
Which turned out to be wrong, obviously.
Demonstrably wrong, yes. But the approach was revolutionary. He was looking for a naturalistic explanation based on observation, trying to find an underlying principle. He moved the basis of inquiry from divine command to, potentially, rational law.
In that Stark, that desire for rational explanation, it didn't just stop with figuring out what the world was made of, did it?
Not at all. It quickly turned inwards, towards questions about human experience, justice, knowledge itself. That initial burst of curiosity, the drive to find rational order in both the cosmos outside us and the life within us, that's really the bedrock on which all of Western intellectual tradition was eventually built. So once you adopt that rational, questioning stance, you pretty much inevitably run smack into the most abstract, but also maybe the most fundamental branch of philosophy, metaphysics.
Metaphysics, okay. The name sounds kind of intimidating itself.
It does, and the name's actually a bit of an historical accident. Aristotle wrote a bunch of works, and his editor apparently just shelved some writings after his works on physics, metaphysica in Greek.
So after the physics.
Literally. Yeah. But the name stuck, and it kind of fits, because metaphysics deals with what lies beyond or underpins the physical world we observe. It explores concepts that often aren't directly accessible to our senses.
Right. This is where we get into those truly massive questions, the ones that fuel debates across science, religion, art, everything. Like, does the universe have objective properties independent of us? What even is time? Is change real or just some kind of illusion?
Those are classic metaphysical questions. It's the study of the fundamental nature of existence, of being, of reality itself.
Okay, let's try to break down some of the core areas within metaphysics. The sources mention ontology first. That's a sub-branch, right? Focus specifically on being.
That's right. Ontology asks, what kinds of things actually exist, and what are the most basic categories we can sort reality into?
Seems simple, but I bet it gets complicated fast.
Oh, immediately. For instance, ontology dives into whether abstract things like numbers or concepts like justice or even mathematical theorems, do they exist as real entities? Are the universals out there independent of our minds? That's sort of the Platonic view. Versus the idea that they're just mental tools, concepts we invent to help us organize the messy data coming from our senses. That view is called nominalism. And think about it, if numbers aren't real in some sense, the whole foundation of physics starts to look a bit different.
Wow, okay. That has huge implications.
It really does. But probably the most gripping, the most personally relevant ontological puzzle for us as conscious creatures is the mind-body problem.
Ah, right. This one feels very central to being human.
It is. It asks, what is the relationship between our consciousness Our subjective experiences, thoughts, feelings, the feeling of me, and the physical stuff of our brain and body.
Okay, and the sources lay out the main competing answers here, right? This isn't just asking the question, it's exploring the potential solutions.
Exactly. Historically, the philosophical answers tend to cluster into two main camps. First, you've got dualism.
Dualism, two things.
Right. Dualists argue that mind consciousness, thought, maybe soul and body, the brain, physical matter, are two fundamentally different, distinct kinds of substance.
Like Descartes famously argued.
Precisely. Cartesian dualism is the classic version. Mind and body are separate entities, though Descartes thought they somehow interacted, maybe through the pineal gland, oddly enough.
So, on that view, when your physical brain stops working at death, the non-physical mind, the consciousness, it could potentially continue.
Theoretically, yes. That's a core appeal of dualism for many. But the massive challenge for dualists has always been explaining how. How can this non-physical, non-spatial mind stuff possibly interact with and cause changes in the physical spatial body stuff? How does a thought, which has no weight or location, make your physical arm move?
The interaction problem.
The interaction problem, exactly. It's a huge hurdle.
So what's the main alternative camp?
That would be monism. Monists argue that reality, at its most basic level, is made up of only one kind of substance.
Okay, one substance. What kind?
Well, the dominant form today, especially in scientific circles, is materialism, or sometimes called physicalism. This view asserts that everything that exists, including consciousness, is ultimately just physical matter or can be reduced to physical processes.
So my thoughts, my feelings, they are just complex patterns of electrochemical signals in my brain. My sense of self is an emergent property of this physical system.
That's the basic idea of reductive materialism, or identity theory, yes.
Yeah.
There's no separate non-physical ghost in the machine, as philosopher Gilbert Ryle famously put it.
But that view has its own challenges too, right?
Absolutely. The big one is explaining subjective experience, what philosophers call qualia. Why does the color red look red to me? Why does pain feel painful? If consciousness is just information processing in the brain, why is there this inner subjective quality to it at all? Why isn't it all just dark inside, functionally doing the same processing?
That's the hard problem of consciousness, isn't it?
That's David Chalmers' term for it, yes. And it remains a massive metaphysical puzzle. It directly impacts how we think about neuroscience, artificial intelligence. Can a sufficiently complex computer ever be conscious or just simulate consciousness? Metaphysics is right there at the cutting edge.
Wow. Okay, so beyond the mind-body thing, metaphysics also tackles the very framework of reality, time and space.
Yes, fundamental structures. And again, this isn't just abstract navel-gazing. How we conceive of time and space affects our understanding of the entire cosmos.
The sources mention Newton's view first, absolute space and time.
Right. Newton pictured space and time as kind of like a fixed, unchanging container or stage. It exists independently, whether or not there's any matter in it. Time flows at a constant rate everywhere. Space is just there, a background grid.
But that wasn't the only view, even back then.
No. Newton's contemporary, Leibniz, a brilliant philosopher and mathematician, argued for a relational view. He said space and time aren't things in themselves. They're just concepts we use to describe the relationships between objects.
How so?
Leibniz argued space is just the order in which things coexist, and time is just the order in which things happen, the order of succession. If you could magically remove every single object from the universe, there'd be no relationships left, and therefore, according to Leibniz, no space and no time either.
That sounds much closer to how, say, Einstein thought about space-time later on.
It definitely echoes in modern physics, yes. The idea that space-time is dynamic and related to matter and energy.
Okay, and then there's the metaphysical question that feels like it hits closest to home for our daily lives. Causality and free will.
Ah, yes. This one is absolutely central to our sense of self, responsibility, morality, everything.
So what's the core issue?
A core issue is determinism versus libertarian free will. Determinism is the view that every single event, including every human thought and action, is the necessary result of prior causes and conditions, operating according to fixed laws of nature. It's an unbroken chain of cause and effect stretching back to the Big Bang.
Meaning, everything is predetermined.
If strict determinism is true, yes. Your decision to listen to this deep dive right now was, in principle, predictable and unavoidable, given the state of the universe a moment ago, a year ago, a billion years ago.
Yeah.
Your feeling of making a free choice is just a kind of powerful subjective illusion.
Okay, that's unsettling. And we really need to connect this to the listener's world because the implications are massive, right?
Yeah.
Especially for morality and law.
Huge. Our entire legal system, our concepts of praise and blame, moral responsibility, guilt, they largely rest on the opposite idea, libertarianism. Libertarianism is the metaphysical view that we do possess genuine free will, that at least some of our choices are not determined by prior causes. We have the ability to be the ultimate originators of our actions we could have genuinely chosen otherwise in the exact same circumstances. Contra-causal freedom.
And that's the tension. If determinism is true, how can we hold people morally responsible?
Exactly. If a person's actions were truly inevitable due to their brain chemistry, genetics, upbringing, the whole causal chain, how can society justify punishing them based on blame or retribution? Punishment might still be justifiable for practical reasons, deterrence, rehabilitation, protecting society. But the idea of them deserving it because they freely chose evil becomes really problematic.
Is there a middle ground?
There is a very influential third position called compatibilism. Compatibilists try to argue that free will and determinism aren't actually incompatible. They can both be true.
How does that work?
They typically redefine free will. They say an action is free if it's caused by the person's own internal states, their beliefs, desires, values, reasoning, without external coercion, even if those internal states themselves were ultimately determined by prior causes.
So you're free if you're doing what you want to do, even if what you want was itself determined.
That's the basic idea for many compatibilists. It tries to rescue moral responsibility by focusing on the proximate cause being internal to the agent, even within a deterministic universe. But, as you can imagine, libertarians often find this a watered-down version of free will.
It's clear these metaphysical debates aren't just abstract games. They shape our understanding of ourselves and society at the deepest level.
Absolutely. Metaphysics forces us to confront the very foundations of what it means to be, to know, and to choose.
Okay, so we've wrestled with what might be real, the domain of metaphysics. But the immediate, unavoidable next question is, okay, fine, but how would we actually know any of that? How do we know what's real?
Precisely. And that leads us straight into the next major branch, epistemology, the theory of knowledge.
Epistemology. So this asks, what exactly is knowledge? How do we get it? And maybe crucially, what are the limits? How much can we really know for sure?
That's it, exactly. Epistemology is essentially putting our own tools for knowing under the microscope. It questions the reliability of our senses, our memory, our reason, all the ways we claim to acquire knowledge. When you say confidently, I know X, epistemology asks, what's your basis? What's your justification? What intellectual warrant are you claiming?
All right, let's unpack that rigorously. The sources point to a major historical debate about where knowledge primarily comes from. Two big schools of thought, right?
Yes, especially defining the early modern philosophical period.
Yeah.
These two camps really set the stage. First, you have rationalism.
Rationalism. Reason.
Exactly. Thinkers like René Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, they argued that genuine, certain knowledge comes primarily through our capacity for reason, maybe through innate ideas we're born with, independent of messy, unreliable sensory experience.
Like Descartes' famous cogito ergo sum.
That's the classic example. Descartes tried to doubt everything he possibly could, his senses, his memories, even mathematical truths. But the one thing he found he couldn't doubt was the fact that he was doubting or thinking. I think, therefore I am. He saw this as a foundational piece of knowledge arrived at through pure reason, not observation.
So the idea is we can deduce necessary truths like rules of logic, mathematical axioms, maybe even our own existence just by thinking correctly. Truths that have to be true.
That's the core rationalist claim. These truths are certain precisely because they don't depend on the senses, which can deceive us.
Okay, so what's the opposing view?
That would be empiricism. Think John Locke, George Berkeley, David Hume. Empiricists argued that knowledge comes primarily, maybe even exclusively, through sensory experience.
Experience, observation.
Right. They largely rejected the idea of innate knowledge. Locke famously described the mind at birth as in tabula rasa, a blank slate. All our ideas, all our knowledge ultimately derives from what we see, hear, touch, taste, smell.
So rationalism looks inward to reason for certainty, while empiricism looks outward to experience for data.
That's a good way to put it. Rationalism seeks necessary, universal truths. Empiricism deals more with contingent truths, things that happen to be true based on observation, but could potentially have been otherwise.
And this whole debate, reason versus experience, leads directly to a core problem in epistemology. What does it actually take for a belief to count as knowledge?
Exactly. For a long time in the 20th century, the standard answer, kind of a baseline definition, was the justified true belief, or JTB framework.
The GTB. Okay, break that down.
For you to genuinely know some proposition, let's call it X, 3 conditions traditionally had to be met. First, you have to believe X. Second, X has to actually be true. And third, your belief in X must be justified. You need good reasons or evidence.
Okay, let's walk through that. If I believe X, but X is actually false, I don't know it. I'm just mistaken.
Right.
If X is true, but I don't believe it, well, then I obviously don't know it either. And the tricky one, if X is true, and I happen to believe it, but I don't have a good reason, like I guessed or I believed it based on a horoscope,
then it's not knowledge either. It's just a lucky guess, maybe a true opinion, but not knowledge. That justification condition is what separates genuine knowledge from mere coincidence or unsupported belief. It's the epistemological standard.
But, Tapir, I feel a but coming. The sources make it clear this JTB definition wasn't the end of the story. It ran into problems.
Oh, big problems. A philosopher named Edmund Gettier published a very short but incredibly influential paper in 1963. He presented these clever hypothetical scenarios now called Gettier problems.
What do they show?
They describe situations where someone clearly had a justified true belief, all 3 conditions were met, but our intuition screams that the person doesn't actually know the thing they believe.
How is that possible?
Usually the justification was perfectly reasonable and the belief turned out to be true, but the reason it was true was completely disconnected from the justification. It was true due to some kind of luck or weird coincidence the person wasn't aware of. The justification didn't properly track the truth.
So JTB wasn't enough. Knowledge is even harder to pin down than that.
Exactly. It caused a kind of crisis in epistemology. Philosophers realized they needed something more, maybe stronger forms of justification, or theories that require the justification to be undefeated by other truths, or theories focusing on the reliability of the process that formed the belief.
Like reliabilism.
Like reliabilism, yes, which suggests a belief counts as knowledge if it's produced by a reliable cognitive process, like clear vision, sound reasoning, whether or not the person can articulate the justification internally. Or maybe infallibilism, which demands absolute certainty for justification.
It seems like the rationalist-empiricist debate comes back in here too.
It does, and perhaps the most significant attempt to bridge that gap came from Immanuel Kant. He offered a kind of synthesis.
How did Kant try to reconcile them?
Kant argued that, yes, all our knowledge begins with sensory experience agreeing with the empiricists. But, he said, our minds aren't just passive blank slates. They come pre-equipped with certain innate structures, categories like time, space, causality, that actively organize the raw data coming from our senses. We need these structures to make any sense of experience at all.
Wow, okay. So the data comes from outside, empiricism, but our brain provides the essential software, the framework, rationalism, to process it. We can't experience the world except through these built-in conceptual filters.
That's the core of Kant's transcendental idealism. It's a hugely influential idea, essentially saying that the structure of our knowledge reflects the structure of our minds as much as it reflects the external world. And you can see how modern science operates this way. It relies on empirical observation, but interprets that data using sophisticated mathematical and logical frameworks, which are products of reason.
This naturally brings us to the edge, right? The limits of knowledge, which is where skepticism comes in.
Exactly. Skepticism is often misunderstood as just being negative or cynical. But philosophically, it's a rigorous position questioning whether genuine knowledge or certainty is actually attainable.
Are there different kinds?
Oh, yes. You have extreme global skepticism, the kind that argues we can never really know anything about the external world for certain. Because how can you definitively prove you're not a brain in a vat being fed simulated experiences? Or that you're not being systematically deceived by some evil demon, as Descartes worried? Since you can't rule those possibilities out with absolute logical certainty.
It gets you want to suspend judgment about everything.
That's the radical skeptical conclusion. But there are also more moderate or local forms of skepticism. Maybe we can't be certain about the external world, but we can be certain about our own thoughts or logical truths. Or maybe skepticism just means holding incredibly high standards for justification, reserving the label knowledge only for things we're practically certain about. It encourages intellectual humility.
And what's fascinating here, as the sources point out, is how directly relevant epistemology is to our daily lives now, especially with information overload.
Absolutely critical. Epistemology is your built-in BS detector, basically. When you see a claim online, read a news report, hear an argument, you are consciously or not running an epistemological check.
You're asking, is this claim true? do I believe it? And the big one.
What is the justification?
Yeah.
Is the source reliable? Is the reasoning sound? Is there actual evidence, or is it just an appeal to emotion or authority or tradition?
So epistemology isn't just some abstract theory. It teaches you how to evaluate information, how to calibrate your confidence, and maybe most importantly, when to recognize that certainty just isn't justified. It's mental self-defense in the information age.
Couldn't have said it better. It trains you to examine the quality of the intellectual tools you're using every single day. All right, so we've tackled what might exist, metaphysics, and how we might know about it. Epistemology. The next logical step is to ask about value. Given what exists and what we can know, how should we act? How should we live? And what makes life or art or experience valuable? This brings us to axiology, the study of value, starting with ethics.
Ethics or moral philosophy. This feels like the branch people connect with most immediately because we face ethical questions constantly.
We absolutely do. Ethics deals with human action, moral obligation, right and wrong, good and bad. It asks those fundamental questions.
Yeah.
What makes for a good life? What are our duties to each other? How do we determine if an action is morally right or wrong?
And the sources really highlight the importance of normative ethics within this. That's the part that tries to give us actual guidelines, frameworks for making moral decisions.
Exactly. Normative ethics isn't just describing how people behave morally. It's prescribing how they should behave. It tries to establish practical moral standards.
And within that, there seems to be this major ongoing tension between two dominant approaches that shape so many debates, like duty versus outcome.
That's a central fault line, yes.
Yeah.
Let's start with the duty-based approach, known as deontology.
Deontology, dude.
Right. The most famous proponent is Immanuel Kant. Deontology argues that the morality of an action depends only on whether it conforms to a set of moral rules or duties. The consequences of the action are, strictly speaking, irrelevant to its moral worth.
So it's about the act itself, not what happens because of it.
Precisely. For Kant, the key concept was the categorical imperative. These are moral rules derived from pure reason that must be followed universally, without exception. For example, Kant argued we have an absolute duty not to lie and an absolute duty not to steal, period. It doesn't matter if lying might save someone's life in a specific situation. The act of lying itself violates a universal moral duty and is therefore wrong.
That sounds demanding.
It is. It prioritizes principle and consistency above all else.
Okay, so how does the other side approach it, the outcome-focused one?
That's consequentialism. The most famous version is utilitarianism, associated with Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. Consequentialism says the morality of an action is determined entirely by its consequences, by its results.
The ends justify the means.
In essence, yes. Utilitarianism specifically argues that the morally right action is the one that produces the greatest amount of good, usually defined as happiness, well-being, or utility, for the greatest number of people affected by the action while minimizing suffering. You weigh the potential outcomes and choose the one that maximizes overall good.
Okay, these seem fundamentally opposed, duty versus results.
They often lead to very different conclusions. The classic way to illustrate this is the trolley problem thought experiment. You familiar with that one?
I think so. There's a runaway trolley heading towards 5 people tied to the track.
Right, and you're standing by a lever. If you pull the lever, the trolley switches to a different track where, unfortunately, there's one person tied up. What do you do?
Oh, boy.
The strict deontologist might argue you have a duty not to actively cause someone's death. Pulling the lever is a direct action that kills the one person. Even though 5 will die if you do nothing, you didn't intend their deaths directly in the same way. So maybe you shouldn't pull the lever. You'd be violating the duty not to kill. Or maybe using that one person merely as a means to save the others.
But the utilitarian...
The utilitarian calculation seems pretty straightforward. Pulling the lever results in 1 death. Letting it go results in 5 deaths. Saving 5 lives at the cost of 1 produces the greatest net happiness or least suffering. So the morally obligatory action for a utilitarian is to pull the lever.
Wow. Same scenario, completely opposite moral commands based on the framework.
Exactly. It starkly shows how your underlying philosophical assumptions dictate your moral conclusions.
Are these the only 2 options, though? Duty or consequences?
Not at all. There's a third major approach that's seen a resurgence: virtue ethics.
Virtue ethics, what's the focus there?
Virtue ethics shifts the focus away from judging individual actions or rules and instead concentrates on the character of the moral agent. It goes back to Aristotle, really. The central question isn't, what should I do? But rather, what kind of person should I be?
So it's about developing good character traits. virtues.
Exactly. Things like courage, honesty, justice, temperance, generosity. Virtue ethics suggests the goal is to cultivate these virtues within yourself, aiming for what Aristotle called eudaimonia, often translated as human flourishing or living well.
And the idea is that a virtuous person will naturally do the right thing.
More or less, the ethical action is the one that a person with well-developed moral character would choose in that situation. It's less about applying a rule or calculating outcomes, and more about embodying excellence as a human being. It emphasizes moral education and habituation over abstract principles.
It feels quite different, more holistic maybe.
It offers a different perspective, focusing on long-term development and the kind of communities we want to build. And all these theories, deontology, consequentialism, virtue ethics, feed into applied ethics.
Which is where the rubber meets the road.
Precisely. Applied ethics takes these theoretical frameworks and applies them to specific, concrete dilemmas in various fields. Medical ethics, for example, how do we allocate scarce resources like ventilators? Is euthanasia morally permissible? Business ethics, environmental ethics, bioethics, they all draw on these foundational normative theories.
And connecting this back to the bigger picture, ethics isn't just personal, it underpins our laws, our social structures.
Absolutely. Laws often attempt to codify ethical duties, like laws against murder reflecting deontology, or regulate behavior to achieve good outcomes, like traffic laws reflecting consequentialism. Understanding the ethical theories helps us understand why we have the laws we do, and critically, when those laws might be unjust or need reform based on deeper moral principles.
Okay. So from the good life ethics, we move to appreciating life and the world around us through the lens of aesthetics.
Yes, the second major branch of axiology, or value theory. Aesthetics deals with the nature of art, beauty, and taste.
So if ethics asks what is good, aesthetics asks things like what makes something beautiful? Is beauty just subjective, or are there objective standards? What's the purpose or function of art?
Exactly. It taps into this fundamental human drive to find meaning, order, emotional connection in ways that go beyond mere utility or survival. We seek out beauty, we create art, we respond to the sublime in nature. Aesthetics tries to understand that impulse.
And a core debate here, similar maybe to some metaphysical ones, is subjectivity versus objectivity.
Definitely. Is beauty purely in the eye of the beholder? Is it entirely determined by individual preference, cultural background, personal history? Or is beauty an objective quality, something inherent in the object itself, maybe due to its proportions, its harmony, its form that exists, whether anyone perceives it or not?
And this gets really interesting, as the sources point out, especially now with digital technology constantly pushing boundaries.
It really does.
Yeah.
Think about it. If beauty is purely subjective, how do we justify valuing a Rembrandt painting more highly than, say, a mass-produced poster, if someone genuinely gets more pleasure from the poster? What makes one great art and the other not, if it's all just taste?
And technology throws a wrench in things, too, like AI-generated art.
Exactly. When an algorithm can create images that are complex, visually striking, even emotionally resonant for some viewers, it forces us to ask deep aesthetic questions. Does the intention of the artist matter? Does art require a conscious human creator struggling with their medium?
Or is the output all that counts? What about authenticity? If a machine makes something beautiful, is it art in the same sense as something crafted by human hands and conceived in a human mind?
These are live debates in aesthetics. Can an algorithm truly capture or convey human emotional experience, which many see as central to art's value? Aesthetics isn't static. It evolves as our culture and technology evolve, constantly making us reevaluate our relationship with beauty, creativity, skill, and the very definition of art.
So both ethics and aesthetics are about how we assign value, how we navigate and appreciate the world we live in based on those deeper philosophical grounds.
Precisely. They provide the frameworks for judging not just truth, but also goodness and beauty.
Okay, we've journeyed through these huge domains. What's real? Metaphysics. How do we know? Epistemology. How should we live and what should we value? Ethics and aesthetics. But underpinning all of this, as the sources really stress, is the crucial tool set of logic.
Absolutely fundamental. You can't do philosophy, you can't really do any rigorous thinking without logic. It's not just another branch. It's the engine, the quality control system, the toolkit used across all the other branches.
So what is logic, formally?
Logic is the systematic study of reasoning itself. It focuses on the principles of valid inference and demonstration. It's about ensuring that arguments are structured correctly, that they're coherent, that conclusions genuinely follow from the premises. It's the framework that helps us avoid contradicting ourselves intellectually.
It provides the rules for rational argument.
Exactly. When a philosopher, or anyone makes an argument, they're essentially presenting a set of reasons, premises, intended to support a specific claim, conclusion. Logic gives us the tools to analyze that structure. Is it sound? Does the conclusion actually follow? Or is there a flaw in the reasoning?
And the sources detail two main types of reasoning that are foundational to almost everything we do intellectually. First up, deductive reasoning.
Yes, deduction. Deductive reasoning moves from general premises or statements to a specific conclusion that is logically guaranteed to be true if the premises themselves are true.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed in terms of structure. The strength of deduction is its certainty. If your starting points, premises are accurate, and your logical steps are valid, the conclusion must be true. It doesn't add new information, really. It just makes explicit what was already implicit in the premises.
Like a mathematical proof.
Exactly. Mathematical proofs are prime examples of deductive reasoning. Classic logical forms like the syllogism are deductive. For instance, modus ponens. If P, then QP is true. Therefore, Q must be true. If it's raining P, then the ground is wet Q. It is raining P, therefore the ground is wet Q.
Or the flip side.
Modus collens. If P, then Q, Q is not true, therefore P cannot be true. If it's raining P, then the ground is wet Q. The ground is not wet, not Q, therefore it cannot be raining, not P. These structures guarantee validity. If the premises hold, the conclusion is inescapable.
So deduction gives us certainty, unpacking what's already assumed, critical for math, logic, definitions.
Precisely. But much of our knowledge about the world, especially scientific knowledge, relies on the second type, inductive reasoning.
Induction. This is different.
Very different in its aim and certainty. Induction moves from specific observations or instances to broader generalizations or conclusions. You observe a pattern in a limited set of cases and infer that the pattern probably holds more generally.
This sounds like how we operate most of the time, and how science works.
It's fundamental to both. You see thousands of white swans. You induce the general conclusion. All swans are probably white. You run experiments on a sample group, and if you see a consistent effect, you induce that the effect likely holds for the larger population.
But the key word there is probably.
Exactly. That's the crucial difference. Inductive arguments aim for probability, not certainty. The conclusion always contains more information than the premises alone provides with. You're making a leap, a generalization, a prediction about unobserved cases.
So inductive conclusions can be wrong.
They absolutely can be. You might eventually find a black swan in Australia, which overturns your generalization. New evidence can always weaken or refute an inductive conclusion. That's why scientific theories are described as provisional, always open to revision based on new data. Deduction gives certainty, if premise is true. Induction gives probability based on evidence.
Okay, understanding that distinction feels really important. It helps us understand the different kinds of claims people make, like a mathematical proof versus a scientific theory based on experimental data.
It's critical. Knowing whether an argument is intended to be deductive or inductive tells you what standard to judge it by. Are you looking for logical necessity or probabilistic strength?
And understanding logic also means being able to spot when reasoning goes wrong, which brings us to logical fallacies.
Ah, yes, fallacies. These are errors in the structure of an argument that make it invalid or unsound, even if the conclusion happens, by chance, to be true. They represent breakdowns in reasoning. They're like weak spots in the foundation of an argument.
And this raises a really important question, especially today with so much information and rhetoric flying around. Why is spotting these fallacies so essential for critical thinking? How do they mislead us?
Fallacies are often persuasive, precisely because they appeal to something other than good reasoning. They might appeal to emotion or authority or exploit psychological biases. We already mentioned a couple. Ad hominem, attacking the person instead of their argument.
Right, and straw man, misrepresenting someone's view to make it easier to knock down.
But there are so many others that are incredibly common. Think about the false dichotomy, or black and white thinking. It presents only two extreme options, as if they're the only possibilities, forcing a choice when there might be many alternatives or nuances. You're either with us or against us.
Or the appeal to emotion.
Exactly. Trying to win an argument by manipulating feelings, fear, pity, anger, instead of providing evidence or sound reasoning. Or the appeal to authority, arguing something must be true just because someone famous or powerful said it, even if they aren't an expert on that specific topic.
So training in logic helps you cut through that noise.
It trains you to ignore the emotional appeals, ignore the irrelevant characteristics of the speaker, and focus solely on, are the premises relevant and likely true? And does the conclusion actually follow logically from those premises? It helps you evaluate the argument on its own merits.
The relevance of this today seems huge. Improving decision-making, being able to engage in debates constructively, media literacy.
Absolutely. In an age saturated with information, misinformation, and sophisticated persuasion techniques, logic isn't just an academic subject. It's a fundamental skill for navigating the world without being constantly misled. It encourages clarity, precision, and intellectual honesty. It's like the essential training wheels for dealing with complexity. #tag outro. So we've covered a lot of ground today, journeying through the core architecture of philosophical thought. Philosophy, this love of wisdom, isn't really about having a final set of answers stored away somewhere. It's much more about a system, an interconnected framework of fundamental questions, and the rigorous methods we use to explore them.
A system of questions and tools.
Exactly, to kind of bring it all together. Philosophy starts by probing the nature of reality itself, with metaphysics asking about existence, being, time, mind. Then, it scrutinizes our ability to know anything about that reality with epistemology, the study of knowledge and justification.
Okay.
Then it guides how we should act within that reality through ethics and how we should value our experiences within it through aesthetics.
Right, the value dimension.
And driving and checking all of this, every question, every argument, every conclusion is the essential machinery of logic, making sure our reasoning is sound and coherent. The real insight, I think, is that philosophy isn't just something you learn, it's something you do. It's an ongoing activity, the rigorous, systematic examination of your own deepest beliefs and assumptions.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it means that being truly well-informed isn't just about collecting more facts, more data points. It's about understanding the underlying architecture, how we arrive at those facts, how we justify them, how we evaluate their significance. Without some grasp of that philosophical foundation, we're kind of like assembling puzzle pieces without ever looking at the picture on the box lid. We're operating without really checking the operating system itself. And if philosophy's job is to fundamentally challenge our core assumptions about whether we have free will, how reliable our senses really are, whether beauty is universal or subjective, then we have to ask ourselves, honestly, how much of what I feel certain about right now is based on something I've never really put under the microscope, something I haven't subjected to that rigorous logical examination. So here's a final thought, something provocative to maybe chew on after this deep dive. Pick one core assumption you hold, maybe about justice or what makes news reliable, or even something personal like the inevitability of your future path.
Got it.
Now, try to isolate the epistemological justification for that belief. Why do you know it's true? If you had to defend that assumption using only cold, hard, deductive logic, could you do it? Or does it rely more on induction, authority, intuition, emotion? Start digging into the foundations of your own beliefs. You might just find that the most valuable knowledge isn't knowing all the answers, but understanding the limits of what you truly know.